Hi everyone. In today's video, we will know about AWS Code Deploy, why we use a Code Deploy and what are the uses of Code Deploy and the benefits, key features. So let's move to agenda. So in this video, we will learn what is AWS Code Deploy and why, what are the benefits and the workflow of Code Deploy, what are the key features and the deploy components and what are the use cases of this AWS Code Deploy. So first we will know what is AWS Code Deploy. Code Deploy is a deployment service that automates the application deployments to Amazon EC2 instances, on-premise instances, serverless Lambda function or Amazon ECS services. So it helps to automatically application deployment in the instances and the Lambda functions and other ECS services, and also you can deploy unlimited variety of applications content, it including the code, serverless and AWS Lambda functions, web and configuration files, executables, packages, scripts, multimedia files. These are all can be the content included in this AWS Code Deploy, and the Code Deploy can deploy the application content that runs on a server. So the next is why AWS Code Deploy. So why it's important? Because it deploy the Lambda functions and I do not need any changes when we are existing the code before you can use Code Deploy. So why means before deploying any code, we don't need any changes to existing code, and also we can easily makes the deployment, and it rapidly releases the new feature and updated the AWS Lambda function versions, and also it avoids the downtime during the application deployment and handles the complexity of updating your applications. So this is why we need. And the next is benefits of AWS Code Deploy. The Code Deploy offers many benefits that are serverless and container applications, automated deployments, minimized downtime, stop and rollback, and centralized control, easy to adopt and concurrent deployments. So let's see one by one. Serverless and container applications. So Code Deploy to deploy both traditional application on server and applications that deploy a serverless AWS Lambda function version or an ECS applications. Automated deployments. Code Deploy fully automate your application deployments across your development, test and production environment, and also it scales with your infrastructure so that you can deploy to one instance to 1000 instances. So the next is minimize the downtime. If your application uses the EC2 or on-premises compute platform, or Code Deploy helps maximize your application availability during an in-place deployment. Code Deploy performs a rolling update across the Amazon EC2 instance, and also you can specify the number of instances to be taken offline at a time of update. So that's it, minimize the downtime. The next is stop and rollback. You can automatically or manually stop and roll back the deployments if there are errors. The next is centralized control. You can launch and track the status of your deployment through the Code Deploy console or AWS CLI. You receive a report that lists when each application division was deployed and to which Amazon EC2 instance. Easy to adopt. Code Deploy is a platform and works with any applications. You can easily reuse your setup code and also can integrate with your software release process or continuous delivery toolchain. The next is concurrent deployments. If you have more than one application that uses the EC2 or on-premises compute platform, Code Deploy can deploy them concurrently to the same set of instances. So these are all the benefits of the AWS Code Deploy. The next is Code Deploy work. So how it works in the code pipeline, I will explain briefly in the next video. So first is commit the code, then it goes to the build. After building, it deploys the means test the code, then it goes to the EC2 instance. So I will explain. Code Deploy is a part of complete the CI/CD solution. In this diagram, we will see Code Deploy is used to conjunction with the additional AWS developer tools, namely that as AWS Code Pipeline. Here we can see AWS Code Pipeline. So it automates the CI/CD pipeline. Then AWS Code Build, it build and test the application components, and AWS Code Commit, it's a source code repository. It helps to deploy an application onto a group of Amazon EC2 instance. Then Code Deploy is used with other tools as part of the complete the CI/CD pipeline. So Code Deploy manages the deployment of application components onto the compute resources that are part of a deployment group. All infrastructure components are created outside of the Code Deploy. So this is how it works. So first it starts with a CI/CD pipeline using the code pipeline. Then it build the test the applications and source code repository, and it's a code commit is a source code repository to deploy the application onto the group of instances. Then it's deploy with the tool of the CI/CD pipeline. So this is how it works. The next is key features. AWS Code Deploy is a services that automates the deployment of application across the environment. It offers a number of key features, it including compliance, scalability, integration, cost effectivity, flexibility, automatic rollback, minimal downtime. These are the main key features. It offers a number of key features. It includes the code deploy. The mainly it's a these are the next is deployment types in AWS Code Deploy. So there are two types in the deployment types in Code Deploy, that is in-place updates and the blue-green updates. In this in-place update is used for the regular computers. It updates the program on each computer one by one. While updating, it stops the old version. So in-place update helps to stop the old version and updating the newer version into a computer and then start it again. It can also take one computer out of use while updating, so user don't see any problems. So the next is blue-green update. The blue-green update is set up the old new set of computer with the newer version, and it lets you test the new version before letting everyone use it. And there are three ways to switch the user to the new version. The one is bit by bit, and the second one is slowly, and the last one is all at once. In bit by bit, it moves user to the newer version in 2 steps. In the slowly, it moves user the newer version a little at a time at set times. All at once, it switches all user to the new version right away. So in the blue-green updates are safer because you can easily go back to the old version if there are problems. They work with all types of the AWS computer. The next is AWS Code Deploy components. The Code Deploy components are application, deployment group, app spec file, revision, deployment, OOF. So in the application, the software is to be deployed, for example, web app, API applications like that. In the deployment group, it helps to set up the EC2 instance, Lambda functions, or Amazon ECS where the app will be deployed. The app spec file, a YAML or JSON file specifying how and where to deploy the app. In the revision, the version of app package, code, scripts are stored in the S3 storage buckets in the GitHub or a repository. Deployment, the execution of deployment plan, OOCs, script that run before, during, and after deployment. The next is use case of the AWS Code Deploy. Web application updates, API deployment, microservices, server patching, Lambda functions. In the web application update, deploy the newer version of web apps to EC2 or on-prem server. In the API deployment, update backend API with no downtime using blue-green deployments. Microservices deploy the containerized services on Amazon ECS. Server patching helps to automate the rollout of server updates. Lambda function updates deploy changes to AWS Lambda functions. These are all the use cases of AWS Code Deploy. So then let's go and see the demo part. So in this we will see how to deploy the code. So let's go to the Code Deploy. So here we can see the deployment applications and code deploy build, the many features. So there is first we need to create the applications. Let's create application code demo and select the compute platform. So here select the compute platform. Here I am selecting the EC2 on premises because I am using the EC2 instance. So here we can see application is created successfully. The next thing what we need to do is we are creating the instances. Go to instance. So here we need to create the instance. So launch instance. So give the instance name code deploy. Okay, then here I'm selecting the Ubuntu. Select the key pair. Click on launch instance. So instance is launched successfully. So after creating the instance, so we need to create the role before connecting to the instance. So go to the IAM rules. So here we need to create a role. So create role. AWS services, and I am choosing as EC2 use case. Click on next. So give the permission for S3 and code deploy. Click on AWS Code Deploy full access, then next. So give the role name deploy demo EC2. Click on the create role. So here we can see EC2 deploy demo is created. So here we can see EC2 deploy demo as created. The next is what we need to do is go to the instance. We need to attach the IAM role to the instance. Go to security. Code deploy, go to action and go to security and modify the IAM role. Here we need to select the IAM role. So that is EC2 deploy demo. Update the IAM role. So IAM role is updated successfully. So the next thing is we need to connect the instance. So instance is connected successfully. Then go to the AWS install agent. So here to go and select the AWS Code Deploy install agent. So go inside this. So here install the code deployment agent. So using the command line, here we need to install the code deploy agent for Ubuntu server. So I am using a Ubuntu server. To install the code deploy agent or Ubuntu server, there is a following commands. So first we need to update the sudo. So copy this, go to the EC2 instance. So we paste the sudo apt update. As it's updated successfully, then go inside this and install the Ruby full. Copy this. Yes. So Ruby installation is successful. The next is install the wget. Wget is installed. The next step is it's showing change the directory to Ubuntu. So we have already changing the directory to Ubuntu and we are working in the Ubuntu. So the next is we need to install the Amazon AWS.com version. So copy this, go to the EC2 instance and paste it here. So here let's go and read this one. So bucket name is the name of the Amazon S3 bucket and the contain the code deploy resource kit and your region and the region identifier. So we need to change the region and the bucket name. So here I'm using the AP South 1 region. So copy this one and go to the EC2 instance. So here the region identifier I'm using AP South 1 and the bucket name so go here, click on the resource kit bucket names by region. So here we can see so the bucket name for every region. So I'm using the AP South 1. So copy this and enter. Yeah, so it's installed successfully. The next thing what we need to do is change the mode to install. So copy and go to the EC2 instance and paste. So it's changed the mode. The next thing is so the next to install the latest version of the code deploy agent. So copy, go to the instance, so here we can see so it's installed successfully. So after installing the latest version, so there is a command to if the code agent is installed and running successfully. So let's go and check using the systemctl. Yeah, here we can see so it's active running. So the next thing what we need to do is we need to install the Apache server. So can take the root access sudo hyphen I, then we need to install the Apache server. So let's enter the command as apt install Apache 2-y. So here we can see Apache server is installed successfully. The next what we need to do is go to the EC2 instance. So copy the IP address. So we need to paste it index.html. So using the IP address, we are directing the HTML page. So it's the site cannot be reached. So okay. So what we need to do is reload this one, and then we need to create the deployment first. Then we try to access this IP address. So first, what we need to do is go to the code deploy. Yeah. So here we need to create the deployment group. So I enter the code demo and enter the service role with the code deploy permission that grants the AWS Code Deploy access. So enter a service role ARN. So go to the IAM role. So here we can see the ARN. Copy this ARN and go to this code build. And then here I'm using the in place. In the theory part I will explain the in place is a instance will briefly take an offline of its update also. And then here I am using the Amazon EC2 instance because I am creating the EC2 instance on premises. And then name as select the name and the value should be code deploy. So code deploy. So disable the load balancer. Click on the create deployment group. So here we can see it successfully deployment the group. So here we can see the deployment group name and deployment type, rollback, and the service role ARN all are it shows. The next thing what we need to do is we need to create the deployment. So here the deployment group is code demo, takes, and the computer. And there is a revision type. There is a two option. One is Amazon S3 and the application is stored in GitHub. Here I am selected my application is stored in GitHub. So it asking for the GitHub token name. So select the name of the token associated to an account you have already connected, or grant the AWS Code Deploy permission to access the different account. To connect the GitHub account for the first time, so you can type the as for the account and choose the connect to GitHub. So I have take the GitHub token name. So go to your GitHub repository. So and the code where so here I am giving the token name as password, and the next is we need to connect to it a GitHub. So here we need to authorize the AWS code suite. Enter the password. So I will give the confirm. So here we can see application code demo successfully bound to the password GitHub token. Here we need to give the repository name. So go to here. So this is the recent one I have created. Copy this and go to it, paste it here. So then we need to give the commit ID. So let's go to the GitHub repository. This is my repository here. Let's go to the commit, the reset commit, which one we have done. So we will copy this one and go to this code build. Here we need to paste the commit ID, and then you can give the deployment description, otherwise you don't need to, so it's optional. So then we need to create the deployment. So here the deployment configuration application. So here we can see the deployment status is installing instance, it's in progress. So once it's completed, let's check the process. So here we can see deployment is successful. So after deployment successful, what we need to do is we can go to the EC2 instance. So here EC2 instance, copy this, and then index.html, just go, we have already run this one, right? So just go here and refresh this page. It will redirecting to this. Yeah, here we can see. So it's redirecting to the index.html file. This is how we can build the project. So in the repository, so just go to the code. Here there is a app-spec.yaml. So here we can see it contains the version and the file source and the destination, the source. So the source is contained index.html and style CSS. The destination is var www.html. So this is the important for when we are building. So because it contains all the details of the source, destination like this. And when we are deploying this code build, when it's built successful, it's redirecting to this page. So before deployment, it shows us the page is not found. Once the deployment is successful, it's open this page. This is how we need to deploy the or configuring the code deployment. This is all about today's video. Thank you.